What's going on, fam? Get the
What's
Bag
up?
podcast. I'm your host, Gladia. Got my co host, Tim Park. We have a
Yep,
really good episode today. No guest today. It's just going to be me and Tim. Tim's on the road.
I am. Family stuff, I had to take care of
Okay.
some family
Yeah,
stuff,
man, you
so
got,
coming back.
hey, no matter where we're at, we're still going to be holding it down. Um,
That's it. Show
so
must
I
go
always,
on.
right. I like to always mention this. This is a live stream, so feel free to post your questions or any comments throughout the conversation. But don't forget to subscribe, like our channel. This does help with the algorithm. But we're at episode 16. Like that's crazy. I feel like
Wow,
it was just yesterday. Like we just started. But we have a
absolutely.
really important conversation today, or discussion regarding how to keep motivation. How do you stay motivated? I think that's kind of a in our discussions with people that we know in our circles. How do you stay motivated in whatever it is that you do? You set out on things you want to talk about or do, but sometimes you fall short, and I think that's pretty normal in
Right.
terms of what goes down. So we'll be talking about that again. Yeah, we'd love to hear your questions, but Tim, I'll start off with you. Like,
Yeah.
what keeps you motivated?
I think the thing for me, motivation is it, it's a different things for me actually. I mean, like one, I'm very competitive, and that motivates me. My family motivates me, especially to achieve certain, I guess, success or achieve,
Hmm.
a certain accomplishment within professionally because I do want to support my family as an entrepreneur, right? I could support my family as, a professional working in the workforce, but I chose to be an entrepreneur. So
Mm.
continue to provide and then also be in a state of being comfortable to where I don't have to worry about finances or anything like that. I can just concentrate on helping other people and then concentrating on my business. So the big motivator for me is definitely my family, right? And I think that comes from, you know a lot of motivation sometimes comes from fear, right? Like
Mm.
some fear is like I have no money and I need to do something right now. So I'm motivated to actually make a change or
Mm.
commit to this certain business or this job because I have to provide for my family or myself, right? They're backed into a corner. So it's either do this or you're getting kicked out of your house or you're getting kicked out of your apartment or whatever, right? So
Mm.
um I think maybe a lot of people fall under the fear part of it, but I know that's how I got into real estate. That was my motivator, is that I really had to make a change in my life, right? So
Right.
I was kind of backed into the corner. So that there's that fear factor for you as well, and then that eventually turns into, I really love what I do, and then that's another motivator, right? Is like your
Passion.
passion, right? Exactly. You're passionate about what you do. You love what you do. You're not in fear of not or failing or anything like that. You do it because you love it and it shows, right?
Yeah. I love that. I think you touched upon something really key, which is, when your back's against the wall, there's just something um, about the human race that when they're up against all odds and they have to make something happen, either you make
Hmm.
something happen or you don't. Either people, when the back's against the wall, they'll either give up and shut down, or it's time to step up.
Right.
It's
Right.
one or the other, if you keep it super simple. Um, we'll figure something out. Like the way the brain works, like we'll find solutions one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
We'll force ourselves. And sometimes like that's why when people say like, if I go broke, I can get right back where I was. I know exactly how to do it. There's something about starting over, starting fresh, when you have all this pressure on you, where it's like you figure out quick solutions to, you know, to motivate you to get where you want to be. I mean, I was in that situation
Mm-hmm.
back in probably 2016. I think I talked about this maybe earlier on in our probably episode 2, I think, where I was working, you know, my job was working at a nonprofit. I worked with kids. I did that on and off really for 9 years. It was like one of my first jobs I had. Um, and I thought I wanted to be a teacher and all that. And then I figured out the pay grade, and I was like, I love that, but not that much. Um, and I just knew I needed something, a change. And, you know, I quit my job
Right.
to attend a boot camp, a 10-week boot camp, to become a designer, a product designer in the
Mm-hmm.
tech field. And but after the boot camp, you know, I didn't have a job throughout that time. I depended on my wife for the finances,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a little bit saved up, but not very much. But after the boot camp, like I literally couldn't rest. I couldn't just chill and be like, oh, okay, let me take my time. I didn't have that opportunity
Right.
because, you know, my wife was working a full-time job, and, you know, we were commuting, and I literally I had to grind. I had to hustle my way.
Mm-hmm.
So I did whatever I could do. And you really put yourself in like situations where you would have never thought of when your back is against the wall. It's like that motivator where it's like, I want to be successful. I want to succeed in this. You will do whatever
Mm-hmm.
it takes. I was going to events to network with people. I was like writing Medium articles to put myself
Mm.
out there. I was working on my portfolio. I was hitting up people, stalking people on Facebook, LinkedIn. I was doing whatever it took because I think it was like a month or two without a job. And I've never gone through a
Mm.
situation where I wasn't working. I
Mm-hmm.
always was able to find a job. And I was like, I'm not going to take on you know, a job at a grocery store or whatever. I need to like really
Mm-hmm.
focus on this. And so um, I grinded, and there was just something about having your back against the wall, which I felt I did. Like it was emotional. There was days where I cried because I was just like, oh man, like what's gonna happen? I'm putting in the work. And
Mm-hmm.
it, you know, so happened to be I just landed you know, I'm in the same company where I'm at now. And you know, everything just happened for a reason. So for me, like what keeps me motivated is just just never giving up, is
Mm.
putting myself in always putting myself in positions to succeed. Of course, like my family, you know, it keeps me motivated, but it's also like I sometimes like having that underdog mentality because there's
Mm.
something about people or proving people wrong or people
Yeah.
underestimating you that
Yeah.
just motivates me. And maybe it's like the athlete in me as well. I was a
Mm-hmm.
short, you know, basketball player. You know, people took me for granted in a sense where it's like, oh, she's not, you know, she's short. I mean, I'm like 5'7", so I'm not
Right.
technically short, but like in
Mm-hmm.
basketball sense, like sure. And I wasn't really fast, but I
Yeah.
hustled. And so there's just something when people
Mm-hmm.
underestimate you. Either I was too quiet,
Right.
um, and then you go in and like prove them wrong. Like there's something so satisfying
Mm-hmm.
about that. So
Yeah.
in short,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's what motivates me.
I mean, I
But
think the what do you call it? The, you know, underdog mentality is true to me too, because, you know, I think even as minorities, we get underestimated,
oh
at
yeah.
any given moment, right? So, proving people that we can achieve something or do what we're doing as a business, then I think that, you know, motivates us even more, right? Especially, you know, I don't know how you feel just in real estate, and how, you're trying to be a voice for women and the LGBTQ.
It's
The
hella
acronym plus,
acronyms.
yeah,
Yeah.
hella acronyms, but that community to where it's like, you have some extra motivation and passion around the real estate side for
Mm.
education and bringing that to the forefront, right?
And community. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's funny. Yeah. I mean, that motivates me because I've been through it. Like I'm going through it right now. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a community of the LGBTQIA plus community, like for somewhere to learn. I think a lot of times, where again, it's it's funny. I posted the discussion I mentioned last week about like there needing to be a community, and I want to build that, I want to start that, and how the
Mm-hmm.
industry is heteronormative. And I had a troll. I had my first troll um, comment on that, saying like, no, that's not the
Mm.
case. Real estate is diverse, or there's more women entrepreneurs, or there's more women in the real estate space than men, or something along those lines. And I was like, you totally missed the point, bro. Like there's
Mm.
differences. Of course, there may be more realtors, maybe more
Right.
realtor women
Right.
starting off, but like
Right.
investors. But as you go up higher in the ladder, the real estate ladder of like success, you
Mm-hmm.
see less and less women, less and
Yes.
less women of color specifically. And like he kept going
Mm-hmm.
back and forth, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna, I gotta add my own expertise. But like he really was saying like, no, it's not heteronormative. And it's so, he proved my point. And like there's men out
Mm.
there that want to first off have the last word, and like, how are you
Mm-hmm.
gonna say that? I'm like, you're not a woman, you're not a woman of color. Like, how are you gonna say it's not heteronormative? Like that's,
Right.
it was hilarious. And I was just like, oh wow, is this what it feels like to have a troll? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
That's crazy.
it was really interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think, like Jasmine says, like bringing that awareness to that,
Mm-hmm.
because if somebody's got to do it, if it's not me, like, it's just bringing that so yes, I'm really glad you brought that up. That definitely does motivate me, um, to feel like I have a whole community on my back. And maybe sometimes you just need to have that to motivate you to keep pushing.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I realize is that, through the different businesses that I've had, there's different motivations at that time, but it comes back to where I'm wanting to be an entrepreneur. I really,
Mm,
that's what I want. And I believe that I'm meant for that, right? I'm
right.
not meant to sit in an office and basically make money for someone else, right?
Mm,
And I, I truly believe that you can, you know, work for yourself or create your own business and at the same time, you know, believe that you can do that, right? And a lot of people talk themselves out of it. And that's
oh yeah.
another motivator that we don't talk about is the hidden motivator of quitting, right?
Mm.
Like they they're surrounded by people that don't give them the opportunity to um, you know push them forward, right? No coach to say they can do it, no
Or your
community that say that
community.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
People you surround yourself with. I mean, that's something we were talking about last night in our West Coast coaching call, which was that we talk ourselves out of so many things. And again, like going back to like how the brain works, like the brain naturally, any sort of like thoughts where it's like outside of your comfort zone, your brain is
Hmm.
automatically goes in protection mode, saying, no, that's dangerous, you shouldn't start that business, or you shouldn't um do this or do that. So you're literally talking yourself out of it. You never know. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try, but we're also live in a society where it's like failure is made a big deal about. But I've for sure feel like I've grown in terms of my mindset as well, and what
Hmm.
motivates me. My motivation has changed, in the last couple years, and just kind of expanding what my goals are and what my capabilities are, and especially being a woman in the tech industry as well, where we have that imposter syndrome. We don't think we're good enough. We
Right.
don't think we're worth. I used to think like getting six figures. I was like, I'm not worth that. Like, I don't have
Mm,
a college degree. I
mm-hmm,
dropped out. I dropped out my junior year because I had to
mm,
pay the bills. I had to work, and
yeah.
I didn't want to deal with like having student loans if I'm not fully invested in that. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that motivate me in that sense. And it just takes a little mental shift,
Yeah.
whatever it is, like gradual changes. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad you brought that. That's such a huge thing that we talk ourselves out of so many things.
Right.
And like then years down the road, you'll be like, oh well, what if I did this? And like,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna be full of resentment. Um, and that's it. Like, so don't be that don't be filled with regret on
Right.
your, dying bed, years down the road, like, oh, I should have started that business or I should have done this and that. Because I realize I'm like, I'm not, I currently work at a company, but it's just I'm
Mm-hmm.
passionate with the work that I do there. But I'm not going to be working there forever. That's not the long term gain. I'm actually using it to really help gain my experience in the entrepreneurship, and it's working vice versa. But I'm worth way more than what they're paying me. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they can offer me 1 million, and that's how I like my mentality. And I feel like I
Right.
still wouldn't be worth that. I'm worth way more.
Right. What would you say to, like, let's say someone doesn't have a support group, or they don't have family members that are pushing them, or, you know, to do what they want to do. Like, they have this idea of starting a business, but, they're doing YouTube University, they're trying to learn, but they don't have a support group or any kind of other motivation to help them, um, you know, move forward. So what would you suggest to them to, you
Yeah.
know, maybe do?
I mean, social media, I feel like is a great community in and of
Mm,
itself, right? Like you have
mhm.
IG, TikTok, LinkedIn. Reach out to somebody that resonates with you. That's
Mm,
free.
that's dope. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a tool in and of itself that you can utilize. There's meetups, right, that you can
Mhm.
go to. Like sometimes you have to get away from that noise of like, you're not worth this, or no,
Mhm.
that's a bad idea. Follow your gut. I always say that.
Yeah.
Your gut is also part of like your brain in terms of like decisions and stuff. It's
Mhm.
connected. When they ever say trust your gut, like it's part of your brain. So trust your gut. If it's something's telling you like, I really want to follow this, surround yourself with people who are doing it already. Like we talk about it too with like wholesaling. Like
Mhm.
if you want to be at a certain stage of closing deals and everything, surround yourself with people that are doing it. You
Mhm.
never want to surround yourself with people who aren't going anywhere. So reach out to people on IG. If somebody resonates, whether it's me or you or whoever
Mhm.
else, like reach out to them. If they're um, good people, that I'm sure they are, they'll respond back and help. I think it goes back to giving,
Mhm.
being a go giver as well,
Right.
or at least they'll point you in the right direction. Like, hey, join this here. Now, if you can afford, if you have a pretty decent like budget, I would totally invest in a community. So
Yeah,
we're
definitely.
in the U, but there's so many other programs out there. Like whatever again resonates with you, just go for it. Because that's been a game changer for me, is like being around you guys. And because compared to other people I know,
Right.
like people say like you're different,
Mm.
or it's they don't understand. But when I'm in this community, like you
Mhm.
guys get it, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's necessary.
It's funny you say that, because it comes, even though you may not realize it, it comes with a certain swag, right? So, like, people are seeing you in a different light because you have people surrounding you that believe in you and want you to succeed, that even motivate
Absolutely.
you to do better, and then close more deals, or ask more questions, or just get more involved in how the process works,
Mm,
and being more successful at it. And you know
yeah.
when you're doing that and concentrating on that and surrounded by people that support you, other people within your circle that are outside looking in are going to see that certain swag that you have when you're conducting your business, right? And
Absolutely.
even like you said at your work, like, oh, I didn't know you did this, and they had perceived you a certain way because
Right.
at work, and then
Oh, I
they
just do
see
my
you.
business at work.
Yeah,
I'm like, I
yeah,
don't, I
yeah,
don't try to put myself out there. But
exactly.
swag, I think that's pretty key. Like I've always been told I have the swag. Like I
Hmm.
walk, like
You
maybe it's
do,
being
you
an
do.
athlete, maybe because I was a basketball player and I walk like I was the shit. Like, I don't know.
Hmm.
It's funny though too,
Hella
because
confidence.
when I used to ref, they used to say I had too much swag on the court. Like
Mm.
the way I walked, they're like, you have too much swag. You need to like, it's very evident from me watching you. With ref is officiating, the higher you go up, the more like your presence or your appearance is really important. But like that's so funny that you say that. Because totally, I've always been told I have like the swag, and maybe I didn't have the confidence behind me with that
Mm.
sometimes. But like you just fake it till you make it, the way I see it.
Exactly.
But yeah, totally. And even I think I was talking about it yesterday. My CEO was saying, because I have weekly meetings with him, like for my department, and he was like, I don't know what it is, but like there's something about your mindset, the way you think. It's a lot more
Mm.
entrepreneurial, and maybe it's like he's like he called it like maybe it's your side hustle, like having that
Hmm.
entrepreneurship vision. You're no
Hmm.
longer like a worker bee kind of say, and he even said that
Got it.
like
Wow.
you're you're shifting your mindset to be a leader,
Mm.
in whatever it is. And he may have been buttering me up, but I'll take it. I was like, hey, I appreciate
No,
that.
that's good. Yeah.
And it's like it's
Acknowledgement is good.
acknowledgement, and it solidified like the work that I've been putting in. It's evident, like you said, people outside looking in. So I thought that
Hmm.
was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, I think here we had like what kind of going more in the technical, like
Sure.
what are different types of motivation? So I've heard of like intrinsic motivation, and this actually takes me back to my kinesiology major days, when
Right.
I wanted to be like a physical therapist way back in the
Hmm.
day. But then I realized how much schooling and money it took, and I was like, nope. I'm like, that's too complicated for me. But
Right.
intrinsic motivation was something that, when you learn about kinesiology and like the psychology, like I took a sports
Hmm.
psychology course, and that was really cool. And how like athletes, connecting athletes with psychology. And that's something
Hmm.
that's pretty new. But the
Right.
definition I think I have of intrinsic motivation is inspired solely from the interest and enjoyment that a person finds in an activity. So that's exactly
Mm.
what we've been talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's a thing where like we're not like blowing smoke up your butt or anything like that just because, this is what's happened in our careers or what we're doing. These are real like, motivations that that have titles to them, right? There are certain um, levels of motivation that you have in your life,
Mm.
and it's broken down scientifically, like you had said. I don't have the list of them in front of me, but
Yeah, it's external regulation, introjected regulation, identify regulation, integrate regulation.
right. And so each one of those represents, a different motivation for you. Like I think what one of them was identify regulation,
Identify
or
regulation.
yeah, right. So where I believe that's where um, you you recognize internally that you are doing something that you actually want to do. And that's your motivation because you want to do it. Nothing's pushing
Mm.
you out of fear. Nothing's pushing you out of, you know, if you do this, you get that, right?
Hmm.
So it's definitely a situation where it's coming from a passion. It's coming from an internal place for you, and there's no other factors that are actually kind of motivating you to do what you need to do for that, right?
I love
Um,
that. I think, yeah, you're spot on with the identify regulation, the official definition is awarding a conscious value to a behavior in such a way that the action is accepted when it is personally important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's key. I think everybody wants to achieve some kind of motivation that is of that caliber, right? They
Mm,
don't want to be a fearful motivation. I don't want to be fearful of, if I lose my job, I have no money, now I have to do something else, right? Like
mm,
that's motivating you to do something else, right? You want to
right.
come from a place like, man, I'm really passionate about this. I'm going to do this because I want to do this, and then that gets into like income classes and stuff like that, of people that have a lot more income or have from family money are more inclined to do something of that nature because they have no worries about
Mm,
funding or not becoming broke type of thing. So they
mm,
can come from that place, right? Some people can't.
right.
They didn't grow up in that environment,
Yeah,
and
I sure didn't.
yeah. So we those people have a different motivator in regards to that. So it does affect the way you kind of grew up and your environment, and all of those things play a
So
factor
true.
into your motivation. So it's definitely something to internalize and think about for yourself, and see which one you kind of fall into, and then you can always evolve. Like you can evolve into um, you know
Right.
something passionate and stuff like that. You don't have to come from a place of fear or anything like that, but that may start that way, but then you evolve into something you're passionate about, right?
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. But yeah, the external regulation, kind of what you're talking about, where you don't necessarily come from
Right.
maybe that environment, but this happens a lot when so external regulation is you do something to satisfy an external demand or receive an externally imposed reward. How many of us have done that, where it's
Right.
like, all right, we have to get good grades for our parents, or
Hmm.
I'm going to college because that's what society's telling me, not because I think it's right. It's like, I mean, I graduated, not to like date myself, but in like the mid 2000s. So that especially around that time was like right when the internet, like Facebook, was just coming out, um,
Hmm.
and that's all it was. Like you're going to college, and if you
Right.
ever talked about like not doing that or doing like an entrepreneurial thing, it was looked down upon. So like you're literally growing up, being told that, like that's being injected in your mind. I mean, even for my parents, they're both immigrants, so being a first generation, that's what my
Hmm.
dad and my mom wanted for me,
Hmm.
was to go to college because that is what meant success. Because for them,
Right.
they come from a whole different world, and they came here for a reason, for the opportunities. So they're like, and their opportunities thought like going to college. So
Hmm.
I think a lot of people have the external regulation motivator, um, where they want to do it. It doesn't come internally from them. It's like somebody else's motivation, perhaps.
Right. Right. And then, what are some of the other ones that are listed on that?
Yeah, I think introjected regulation
Hmm.
is considered to be a relatively controlling form of motivation in which behavior is regulated by internal sanctions and or pressures that are directed towards attaining a reward. So ego
Mm,
enhancement, pride, or avoiding punishment, like such as guilt
mm,
and shame.
guilt. Yeah, that's a big
Mm,
one. I think people do fall under that because they're motivated because I think what the example is, isn't this the example of I am going to church because I don't want to go
to
you
hell.
know, to hell?
Yeah.
I think that's the example, is that they are motivated to do something because there's a punishment, or they feel guilty about something,
Oh
right?
man, I totally grew up in that. I grew up going to the Baptist church, and
Hmm.
I always felt so out of place. I'm just a queer lesbo, like, coming in
Hmm.
here and
Right.
being told, I mean, baptism is quite intense. You women had to wear skirts.
Hmm.
Um, and they talk bad about gay people. So imagine
Hmm.
I'm this closeted, queer girl, like sitting there, super uncomfortable wearing a skirt. And
Right.
I'm hearing the pastor talking about gays, this mocking gay people. And I'm just like, this shit don't sound right. Like, this
Right.
is
Right.
not Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so growing up with that, be like literally hearing that every week, going to church with my grandmother, it was that I totally had introjected regulation where it was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I need to be a good girl because that's the Christian way, and that's what,
Mm-hmm.
my church says. Other and
Right.
like literally that messed with me,
Right.
even all throughout high school, of
Mm-hmm.
like, am I, women have to be good girls.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be bad girls. If you do this, you're a bad girl and you'll go to hell, or you do that like
Right.
that. It was like that intense for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it took some time to, get out of that mindset that can like lock you up, that can lock out like your creativity.
Totally.
um so that in and of itself does strike a chord for me, looking back
Yeah.
of like my younger self.
Mm-hmm. And I think it also like this one hits a lot of people because um, they might not like college is a good example. Like
Mm,
their parents are pushing them to go to college, and they might not want to go to college because they want to pursue something else, and they go to college out of guilt to for their parents because they don't want to you know disappoint their parents, so that's what they do, right? And that's something, not just college. That could be a job, that could be anything really at that point. But I think a lot of people do fall into this particular category of motivation, right?
mm, absolutely. That's a really good one, and a lot of people stay in that their entire lives. They don't evolve with that. I think the
Mm-hmm.
important thing is like, even with these forms of motivation, different types of motivation, is understanding is knowledge is power. I always say that,
Mm-hmm.
or always like think that is, the more information you have, the more you have room for growth. So if I'm
Right,
aware,
right.
like, oh snap, introjected regulation, that's me all the way. I may want to look into like, hey, how do I get to identify regulation? Or if
Right.
we go into integrated regulation,
Mhm.
which is the most autonomous kind of extrinsic motivation, occurring when regulations are fully assimilated with self. So they are included
Mhm.
in a person's self evaluations and beliefs of on personal needs.
Mm.
Um, so that's a kind of another one. An example I see here is a person who attends church because they believe that act aligns with their personal belief system, even if they don't attend for the sheer enjoyment of it. So it's
Mm.
kind of similar to Introjected as well.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying on that one.
Yeah. So I mean, either way, I think it's important to kind of understand and like get into the definitions of what it is. Like if
Mhm.
you're losing, if you're finding it hard to find motivation, or
Mhm.
to like you're trying to seek motivation, like learn about it. What does
Right.
motivation mean? Like, what's the science behind it? How does the brain work when it's motivated? Because the more knowledge you have, the more confident you are in like, oh, maybe I don't like this about, like, maybe that's what's holding me back, is because I'm at this integrated regulation or whatever it is. And I
Right.
want to get to identified regulation, or that intrinsic motivation. That's the sole goal. So
Mhm.
I think educating yourself when you feel like you're stuck is always like the best way, at least to get started.
Yeah. And that I think that's spot on because you're now aware of where you're at in your motivation, I guess, journey, where professionally or personally, right? And then you are like, oh my gosh, I identify this way, right? And if it's, and you want to be in a place where I really want to do this, but I can't because of this, right? Then it goes
Mm,
back into the negative motivation, right? It's like, well, if I want to do this, how do I do that since I'm in this maybe fearful state, right? So
Mm.
just kind of walking through that internally can get you into the right path of the right motivation that you want to be in. Um, True. And then also having maybe a plan to get there, right?
Mm. Oh yeah. I
And,
mean,
and going,
definitely
yeah.
watched. Definitely watch. Just to don't mean to cut you off. Like episode,
No,
I
go
think it's
ahead.
episode wherever we talk about setting goals.
Hmm.
Go there for at least planning out. Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. Because it's, and then the the setting goals and then having the community is all going to help you get to the place where you want to go with your motivation, right?
Mm.
And I think those are all kind of key factors that we've mentioned here earlier that will lead you to a place where you want to be in the motivation. Some people, granted, I get it, you're in a tough spot and your motivation is totally different. And that's fine. It's okay to be in that spot. We're not saying it's not, but
Mm.
ultimately, what's going to be best for you, you have to identify that, right? And
Right.
how you get there from there. And a lot of people do like maybe the fear factor or living on the edge, and that really kind of motivates them. So it's different for different people. So we're not saying, follow this one kind of way to get there, but
Mm.
you're the ultimately one that will know how to do that and how to plan it out your way because it's your journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's just figuring out, learning about yourself and like where you like why like what if you need motivation, why do you need motivation? I've always learned too. I've started like asking myself questions when it's something I'm unsure about.
Hmm.
Um or it's like, why am I feeling this way? Or, why am I why do I need what's motivating me? What's stopping me from getting somewhere? So sometimes you have the answers within yourself. You just have to ask yourself the right questions. So I always,
Absolutely.
that's something to keep in mind too. If whatever situation you're in, it's just starting somewhere, writing out a plan for it, and surrounding yourself with people
Hmm.
based off of whatever goals or plans you have. But going into, what are some tips you suggest, I guess, for motivation, or people who maybe have low motivation, don't know where to start? Like, what are some tips that maybe has worked for you?
um like I'm a big you know uh big hype guy, right? Like, so like I watch certain videos or YouTube videos on people pushing each other, like because I was in football, and that's kind of what we do, is that we kind of push. The coach always pushed you, and you always had someone to push you, right? So
Mm.
my thing is that I have that aspect of um, watching these videos or hype videos, because that's what you did before a game. Is there was a hype video of your past games, and we all got hyped because everybody was doing so good, and that's why I love the community aspect, and that actually helps me definitely get motivated in the right space. I mean, my
Mm.
motivation has changed and evolved differently. I
Right.
don't come back where my back against the wall anymore. I come where, like, okay, now I have this community of support, and let me try to achieve more, and then see where my direction of my business goes. So, and then that motivates me to kind of achieve the level that I want to achieve. And so, what my suggestion to people is, like, one, find what really kind of motivates you as a passion. Even though you may come from fear, but what kind of motivation finds you? Like, videos of motivation of successful people or do it for me, right? So the other one is, I really imagine myself in a certain lifestyle, and that really kind of motivates me too, right? Is that I want my family to be enjoying this lifestyle, right? So that's why I strive to actually um, get there, like make a
Mm.
plan to get there, and then this is how I'm going to do it through real estate, right? So that's kind of some of the tips that I have that have worked for me in the past, right? And when you do get negative motivation, you have fall back on your community and get into like, hey, I'm not sure if I can do this or that, and then they will bring you up, right? They would
Mm.
definitely bring you up and get you out of that place, and then try to get you back on your path, right? That you kind of fell off of.
I love that. I think it just varies on each person. Like for me, like motivation videos are great, but I don't like people screaming at me,
Hmm.
like where they're like, "Hey, let's go!" Da, da. I'm like,
Yeah,
"Whoa,
yeah,
bro,
yeah,
you
yeah,
gotta
yeah,
chill out."
yeah.
But I mean, I do like it. I like more like talks, TED talks, but
Hmm.
it's kind of setting the expectation like you're not going to be on 100% every day. It's just not natural. You can't be at that level sometimes. Sometimes you need a rest. Sometimes you need to like need a break, and you're not going to have the motivation. So just having setting the expectation of like, hey, I'm not going to have it, but these are my backup plans when I don't have motivation. Like,
Right.
I need read a book, or watch a video, watch Beyonce, like whatever, whatever it is. Write in a journal. Keep it simple. I always say like
Hmm.
you don't have to overcomplicate it. Just start small. Again, surround yourself with people who kind of are working towards the same kind of goals as you are. And anytime you're feeling down, being learning to be vulnerable too, and like, hey man, I'm feeling down. I need some support, or like sometimes just having a
Hmm.
conversation. Like you and I will just hop on a phone call, and I'm sure like after that phone call, we both feel great, right? Like, okay,
Yeah,
cool. Like maybe I was
yeah.
having a tough day, but
Hmm.
something you just need to chat with somebody.
I
That's all it
know.
is. Have an accountability partner. I think that's huge. Like you can have
That's
a
huge
community.
too.
You're not going to call everybody, like
No.
you're not going to have an opportunity to talk to everyone at the same time. So find somebody who, again, you resonate, that you've developed a relationship, friendship, whatever it is, and just even do text. I think we've done that occasionally where it's like every morning, it's like, hey, what's up? Let's get it. Um, like find somebody who you can just text and be like, hey, I'm feeling low, but I'm so grateful for you. Like I think gratitude is so underrated too. Gratitude helps a ton, has helped me a lot with like my motivation, and just sharing like what I'm grateful for. I always write two things I'm grateful for, two or three things I'm grateful for every morning. That really sets the tone and motivates me for the day. And there's times I wake up and I'm just like, I don't feel like working out. I don't feel like doing this and that. But if I can at least get one thing done, then I'll feel like it's a success. So again, accountability partner, just finds anything that strikes you, that resonates with you. I think that's really the biggest thing advice I can give for motivation.
Right. And I think that's awesome, G. I think that's that's anything, because you just proved that, hey, we have different styles and everybody has a different style of what kind of helps them get motivated, right?
Right.
And I speak on my past experience or what works for me, and you speaking on, and that might resonate with people that are listening or watching. I think that's amazing. So
Yeah, you don't have to do just because other people do it. Do what works for you. You don't have to have people shouting at you. Some people find that super motivating. I hated that when I was an athlete. I like, again, different athletes work differently. So for me, I didn't like being yelled at by a coach. Like that didn't motivate me, or that didn't make me, because some people, they need that. They need to be yelled
yeah.
at to like pick things up and pick up their performance on the court or on the field. I didn't need that. I needed to be talked to, like at my level, not like
Hmm.
above me.
Right.
And so sometimes, again, like when you're surround yourself with people, like start noticing those things. Like, how do people talk to you? How do people, like, what are people telling you?
Hmm.
If you're around a group of people that are telling you, or like pushing away your ideas or not really supporting it, find another group or find somebody. Keep going until you find somebody that, again, understands you and knows like how to talk to you. So that's also a big thing too, to understand as well.
Absolutely.
But in terms of that, like what are some, in terms of motivation, what are some kind of highs and lows of what's going on in your business? If we go strictly talking about business and what we're doing and getting the bag, where's kind of some highs and lows that you're having right now? That's kind of either helping with your motivation or sometimes you struggle
Hmm.
with motivation.
Well, I think on the motivation side, like when you first get into the business, you're really motivated and hype and, you're excited about it. And then, then as you get into it, it kind of calms down, but then you get another deal. And then that hype goes back up, right? And you're even more motivated at that time. But is some in between times between deals that you're low on motivation, right? And that's kind of what has helped. I go back to the community, and the community has helped me tremendously on getting back into the groove and making sure that what I need to do and being accountable, like you're saying. Accountability partner is huge, with my motivation and people keeping me on track and making sure that I'm doing what I need to do within my business. So,
Right.
and it's not easy. It's difficult during the low points, definitely. But if you keep moving and you see certain successes or you lock up another deal, then that helps you keep pushing forward and moving. And there's going to be low spots, especially if a deal doesn't go through and you're expecting that, and you just got to push forward into rubbing that off your shoulders and closing another deal, and kind of and having those people support you as well. I think that's big key for me in my business.
I love that. I think it ultimately starts with you. Like we can say, yes, have an accountability partner, have a community,
Yeah,
but you need to find that motivation in you. It can't be
yeah,
external, right? Like going back to,
right.
I think it was the external regulation. Um, it needs to start with you. So easily, yeah, I can be part of a community. How many people part of the you have dropped off, stopped attending meetings, stopped,
Hmm.
taking action. Um, they have all these resources in front of them, but they decided no. Stuff gets in the way, of course, personal stuff. I've dealt with that in this past year as well, like dealing with personal things that have come up and has affected my motivation. Where there's
Hmm.
times it's like my brain is just on overload and I cannot. It's hard to focus on business stuff. Of course, with my job, I have to do I have to do my job, but
Of course.
it starts with you learning to love
Mm.
yourself, learning to accept who you are, and learning what motivates you too. What do you need? Holding yourself accountable. You're your own accountability
Mm.
partner as well.
Yep.
So for me, like I've suffered some personal losses as well, like dealing with things.
Hmm.
But I always bounce back one way or another. I fail every day. There's times where I just, I don't do what I'm supposed to do. And so I think we
Mm.
talk about like consistency. That was a big issue with me last year, and I'm so much better this year. But there's times where I just I don't have it. But I make sure I at least do one thing that I need, or that if I feel like I need extra support, I know to who I need to go to. So it's having that awareness and not fading away either. Not thinking like,
Hmm.
oh, I don't want to be a bother. I don't feel like, because you never know. Put yourself out there, and you'll find like, oh, this is exactly what I needed. Like, how many people have we talked to who've kind of been in
Mm.
that situation, right? So
Most
not being so
definitely.
hard on yourself. Like we're so hard on ourselves,
That's
and that
big.
that ruins the motivation juices in us. Like if we're beating ourselves up, how are we supposed to pick ourselves back up,
Mm.
to motivate ourselves? Be nice to yourself. I think it was somebody yesterday again in our conversation was talking about why is it that we don't treat ourselves like we treat our friends? Like we're so
Mm,
hard on ourselves. We should treat ourselves like our friends. Um, the nice things we do for our friends, we should do the same to ourselves. Why are we not? I think we talked about sometimes we send notes to our friends or we do like nice gestures. You should do the same for yourself. Write yourself notes. Have yourself talk to yourself and be like, yeah, you did such a great job. Like, or it's like, hey, like let's do this. I know it's tough right now. Like whatever it is, if you don't have anybody, you have yourself. You're your best friend. So I think that's a big thing
yeah,
I've learned too, is like
that's a
not
bar.
being so hard on yourself.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a bar. I mean, that's definitely a gem. You guys need to write down and
Yeah. I
yeah,
know when I heard that I was like,
don't
"Oh wow." Cuz
be
I mean, I was saying like we are hard on ourselves and we should give ourselves props, especially when we're doing something great or
hmm
even whatever we overcame something. Give yourself props. A little, we talk about the little pat on the back, give yourself a hug.
yeah,
We talk about like uh, having that love for ourselves. We just don't have that enough.
yeah. And I think that's the one big takeaway is that wow, like you know, you got to love yourself and you got to believe in yourself, and then you also, take care of yourself. That's huge.
That's
Because
huge.
if you don't take care of yourself, then you can't do anything else, right?
That's right. But yeah, I mean, we're approaching the hour mark. So appreciate all you
Wow.
guys in the comments with all the love you're showing. We appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe, like our channel. I think in the description we also have our IG Get the Bag. I think it's get underscore the bag podcast on IG. You can follow me at Real Estate Gladia on IG and at Mr. Tim REI on IG as well. So, Tim, what do you want to leave the audience with before we wrap things up?
I think I want to leave the audience with is that, like hey, we had talked about on motivation, is a big factor in your life, personally and professionally. And if you have, um, you know, you know what your motivation is and currently, and it's not the place where you want it to be, you can change that, and just like Claudia said, internally, where you're pushing yourself and then finding out, you're taking care of yourself, even though you may be going through something, you can always change your motivation to be personally, internally passionate about what you want to do in the future. So I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from this conversation today. And yeah,
I love it. Yeah, I guess for me, it's like don't be hard on yourself. Like I said, you're doing the best you can. That's all you can do. Keep things simple. Don't worry about what other people's motivations are. Sometimes you do need external motivations to get you going, get you started,
hmm
but it has to come from you. If you really want it to stick, it has to come from you. So if it's not coming from you, it's not going to you're not going to see the long-term gains of that. So what I want everyone here to take away with is learn about yourself, educate yourself on what it is that motivates you, not what motivates Tim, not what motivates Gladia, what motivates you. What do you need, and work towards that. That's it. Just keeping things simple. We always say things. In everything I do, I keep things simple. We as humans naturally want to overcomplicate everything for some reason,
hmm
when it really shouldn't be that complicated. Figure out what works for you and keep it simple. Baby steps.
yeah,
Where if it's like, all right, I need to just listen, or I need to do yoga for 5 minutes, or I need to
mm,
do write in the journal, or I need to watch this loud person scream at me, whatever it is, like work
hmm
towards that, and you'll start. And again, like Tim said, things will change as you grow, but just start with that and just see where it goes. So that's what I have want to leave the people with.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. And you know, I can't believe it's an hour already. I mean, I was on the road for an hour. See, and
It's
it's
that LA
crazy that
traffic,
LA
man.
traffic. I know. I mean, we had to take side streets and everything, so it was crazy. But we got it done, and you know, the show must go on. And I appreciate you guys. You know, definitely check us out if you have any other questions. I'm trying to look if there's any questions in the comments right now.
No, just a
That we can.
appreciation post, just
Yeah, I love
positive.
it.
Yeah.
I
But
love
you know,
it.
Tim and I are working on some things and building out some either a course or some sort of thing. Our long-term goal is, of course, to build a community through the Get the Bag
Hmm.
podcast. So stay tuned for that, of course. But you know, we'll be back here next week, next Wednesday. We do have a very special guest next week as well. Um, really love what she's doing as a mother, working the job and killing it in her wholesaling business. So it's going to be a really great conversation. Stay tuned for that. But appreciate you guys so much for all the love. You know, share us, like, you know, share, you know, what you enjoy, and feel free to reach out to us.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, love it. Love it. Appreciate all of y'all, and don't forget to subscribe. I can't even say it. But subscribe, and then hit us up on our social media and Get the Bag podcast
cool.
social media as well. So, all right.
All right, fam. Appreciate y'all. Have a great day.